how's training going? I suppose for the benefit of those of you who might be new here, or who maybe haven't clicked on the channel for a while, I'm currently training for a trail marathon. It's the Saddleworth 10 Res trail marathon in the north of the Peak District. It's on the 2nd of March. I'm about halfway through the training block. Now the short answer on how training is going is suspiciously well. There's a lot of things that have gone very, very right this time around. There are things that I could be doing better, but mostly it's going really well. Key differences between this block and the last time I trained for Saddleworth are mostly in just the consistency is way, way better. I'm not missing any runs, I haven't missed any workouts, and I've been hitting mileage without having to adjust my kind of overall weekly mileage progression at all. So that's all gone pretty swimmingly. I did chat in my last video about what I've changed this time around and the mistakes I made last time that I kind of learned on and built from. So I've continued to implement all of those. Key differences or things that have progressed and developed in the training plan since the last video are a couple of things that I won't necessarily know if they've been fruitful experiments yet, just because I haven't been doing them for long enough to know for sure. So the first of these experiments is dabbling in double threshold training, which has been interesting so far. I've done two days so far where I've done double threshold training. Both of them were fairly different, but it's been a good way to kind of get a sense of how my body might respond to that. And then in the kind of the peak phase of the block, we'll know a bit more about exactly how that's going. So for anyone who isn't completely obsessed with things going on in the running space, you might be thinking, what is double threshold training? So double threshold is a form of training that kind of got championed in Norway, and you see it used by a lot of Norwegian runners. The Ingebrigtsens are big users of double threshold training, and it's starting to spread out across various other pockets of elite athletes across the world now. Obviously, as a non-elite runner, a very non-elite runner, using double threshold might not really even be, there might not be no point in it. Essentially, it's one of those training methods that isn't going to work for everybody, but I felt like it would be fun to have a go and see how well I could settle into it and use it. So far my double threshold days have been one day where I did a 3 by 5 minute tempo in the morning, and then I did a long hill rep session in the afternoon. That was me effectively easing into it a little bit. So neither session was particularly difficult. It was just the idea of doing 2 workouts in a day, and the idea being that the 2 workouts you do in a day, regardless of what level of double threshold you're doing, the 2 workouts are kind of at or below, just below threshold, so more in that kind of tempo effort range. You're not going above it, you're not working yourself really, really hard. You're doing 2 sessions of good work, but it's not like ridiculously intense. So I did 2 effectively easier sessions to kind of ease into it, and then the second day I did double threshold, which was earlier this week, was a harder one. So I still did that workout with 3 by 5 minute tempo involved in it, and then in the afternoon it was a higher volume session, which was I did 2k warm-up, I did a mile at marathon pace, I did 8 by 400 meters that was supposed to be alternating between half marathon and 10k pace, but it was my first time working out on a track in about 12 years. So my pace was not slow enough, basically, because I was really struggling to rein myself in. The track is much springier than concrete or trail, so it was interesting, and I'll know for next time I really have to be overly conservative in my paces for track workouts. And then I finished off that workout with another mile at marathon pace, and then I just did whatever distance I had left to make up 10 kilometers to cool down. So I don't really know how that will have affected me yet. I have, I think, 4 more days of double threshold planned for the remainder of the training block. So I'm not going super crazy on it. I'm going to do 2 weeks during my peak phase where I do double threshold days, and then the last week when I do my hardest long run, I won't do any double threshold days. So we'll just do 2 more weeks where I'm doing that kind of training. The other thing I'm playing around with is progression long runs. So a couple of weeks back I did, that's a lie, not even a couple of weeks, last Friday, I did 24k total long run where I did 3k warm up, 18 kilometers progression, starting from a bit slower than marathon pace and building up to a little bit faster than my 10 kilometer pace, or my predicted 10 kilometer pace. So that was the goal there, was just to progress to something that was faster than I'd need, and see how my body responded to that. And then I did 3 kilometers cool down, and that went pretty well. It was relatively comfortable run until the last maybe 3k of the progression, when my quads did start to really feel it. But it was a good session for kind of gathering data, and it was informative. So those are just the specific training things I've been throwing in. In terms of general stuff that's been going on, I was away for a week over Christmas and New Year in Scotland, so I got to run up Ben Lomond, which was great, and I did my long run in the Pentland Hills just south of Edinburgh. It was also really, really lovely. Lots and lots to enjoy in the running there. There was some awful weather as well, but I managed to get off fairly lightly for most of my runs that week. And yeah, just got to enjoy some different scenery. Strength training's been good. Just been basically laying down solid sessions with that, not really doing anything particularly crazy or special there. Just heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, and some accessory stuff for injury prevention. Getting the plyometric stuff in. Just the bread and butter basics really. I'm not trying anything new in terms of strength training this block. I might play around with that a little bit more as the year goes on, but for the minute, just quite happy to leave the experiments for the running program itself and not do any experimenting in the strength program. So what's coming up? I do have a race planned before 10 res, and I'm going to use that race as my last hard long run before the goal race. So in February, 3 weeks before 10 res, I will be doing the Winter Tour of Bradwell half, which is 28k. So that will be my longest run of the block. Tour of Bradwell is much hillier than 10 res. There's a lot more elevation gain in less distance. And while 28k arguably is not a long enough long run to finish off with before tapering, I have been really strict about my kind of mileage balance. So my long run has never been more than 30% of my weekly mileage, which works really well for me, and I'm not gonna change that just to try and hit sort of an arbitrary pre-race long run distance. I did do a 33k long run as my last big long run before 10 res last year, and it was horrendous. It was a really bad day. Didn't go well, wasn't useful. I think if anything it was probably detrimental. So I don't want a repeat of that. The key for me is probably that my long runs just don't go over 4 hours. And I'm pretty sure I can do Tour of Bradwell in under 4 hours. So that's kind of why I've gone for that as my last long effort. Things have come together a lot better generally over the course of this block. My legs are feeling much stronger. I don't 100% know where my fitness is at the minute. So I might have to do a couple of things to try and get a bit more of a data-based figure on where my potential predicted times for certain distances might be. But I feel much better than I did this time last year, like just immeasurably better. Alright, that was just a quick catch up on how training's going. If you're training for anything at the minute, I would love to hear about it. So feel free to leave that down in the comments below. And I should be back next week with a shoe review. That's the plan anyway. So keep an eye out if you're interested in minimalist shoe reviews. I realise that's a very niche market. But I will stop rambling and let you get on with your day, and I will catch you next time.